I'd like to welcome everyone here on behalf of Heather. She's put tremendous thought and effort into this gathering today to provide us all with an opportunity to honor the memory of her husband, her friend, and her companion. And there's a beeping going on in the kitchen, which suggests that maybe the oven is overloaded. So I know Heather is very happy to see so many of you here today. Perhaps more people than we thought originally would be coming, but it's so wonderful that you're here, and we thank you for that. Heather's asked me to make sure not to forget to tell you that there is a slideshow on the laptop and the table up there, which is really wonderful. Heather spent a lot of time this week putting it together, and it's really well done. So if you get a chance to look at it, please do so, because it's really fun to go through stages of Ron's life, which are depicted by his pictures. There's also a guest book, which Heather would like you to sign with your address, phone number, email, bank account numbers, and so forth. Because she knows got to pay for this somehow. People have come from considerable distances, and I just want to mention a few. For example, 4 of Ron's old friends from long days gone by. Glenn Brown and his wife Diane are here from Calgary. Rob McGregor and his wife Leith are here from Vancouver. Bob Fletcher is here from London. Where's Bob? There's Bob. And another old friend, Mike Ruth, and his wife Annabelle are here from Ottawa. We also welcome Heather's sisters, Maury and her husband Ron, Karen and her husband Angelo, who are here from Toronto. Heather's cousin Neil Haddon is here from Toronto. Her cousin Brian and wife Karen are here from Ottawa. And I believe Ron's cousin Beth and Bruce are here from Ottawa. Where are they? Are they here? There they are. I haven't even had a chance to say hi. So we thank you for making such an effort to come today. Back in the back corner there, there's a contingent from Prince Edward County and Belleville who are here. My family from Belleville and Picton. We're glad you guys made it too. I want to make also special mention of the Sierra Leone community, because they were such an important part of Ron and Heather's life. And many of them are here today, and they provided, as you will see, an array of good food that we will all enjoy a little bit later in the program. Ron, as you may know, worked in Sierra Leone for 2 years, working in the CUSO office in charge of CUSO volunteers who are working around the country. And that experience resulted in a lasting and wonderful friendship with Aminat and Arthur Finn and their daughters, who they helped come to Ottawa in difficult times in Sierra Leone. And through that, they have established long friendships with many of the folks from the Sierra Leone community. So we're very happy that so many of you are able to come today and share this afternoon with us. And we'll be hearing from 3 of you a little bit later on. That's page 1. I can't introduce everybody who's here, obviously, but hopefully you'll have a chance to mingle as the afternoon proceeds. There are a couple of people who would like to speak about their friend Ron, as I mentioned. But before that, Ron's sister Diane, who lives in Vancouver, is very sad that she cannot be here to share in this time. Her husband is not well, and she can't leave him, so she has to stay in Vancouver. But if the technology works, Jeff, is it going to work?
It's working right now.
It's working. I didn't know I was on camera around the world. My son Jeff has hooked it up so that what you're seeing now is being sent to Vancouver to Diane, so she can take part in the celebration today. And also it's going to Heather's brother in Dubai, if you can believe it. So Alistair and Gwen, you're there, hello. And also I think Kathy in Kingston, a friend of Heather's who couldn't be here, is also tapped into this methodology. So it's well beyond my understanding how this can be done, but as Heather said, we're the elders, Gail and I, so we're not supposed to know about that stuff anyway. Ron moved to Ottawa in 1961. And he was a youngster then. His sisters were 5 years older, Diane, and 10 years older, Gail. So he had the run of the house, being the little guy with 2 older sisters. And Gail's claim is that she trained her mother as to how to raise kids. So by the time Ron came along, he was well looked after by his parents and his sisters. So he wasn't spoiled. He had a very happy upbringing. And I met him when he was, I guess he was 10 or 11 years old when I first met him. And I was courting Gail at the time, and I don't remember him ever getting in our way, which speaks a lot for a 10-year-old. Thank God, didn't disrupt our relationship. We're going to be celebrating our 59th anniversary next month. After finishing high school, Ron went on to post-secondary, but in that growing up time, which is such an important part of our lives, Ron had some very special friends. I'm going to call on Glenn to come forward and give you a bit of information about their time together. Glenn.
Hi, everybody. I just want to comment that Ron has always been the little guy. Heather has granted me the honor of saying a few words about my good friend Ron. I have known Ron for longer than anybody else outside of my family. That's more than 60 years. I think everyone here can attest to the fact that Ron has made a positive impact on your life, just as he has on mine. Dr. Alan Wolfeld, a respected grief counselor, said that death ends a life, not a relationship. And I feel my relationship with Ron will continue, as he frequently pops into my head, and I remember fondly the times we shared. One of the last times I spoke to Ron, he was sitting comfortably in his hospital bed. And he told me with a glowing smile how happy he was that his Sierra Leonean friends had helped him to discover the joy of dancing. The joy of dancing. Ron had already accepted that his passing was imminent. Cancer had taken away the use of his legs. And he was reflecting on what had made him happy in life. Simple things, like dancing. He encouraged me to get out there and dance and feel the joy. Some of you knew Ron at work, while I knew Ron mostly at play. We never worked together except at the Nepean Library after school, but we played hard together. While Ron worked with Interpares, CSIH, CUSO, Oxfam, and managed volunteers in Sierra Leone to improve the world, I got to enjoy his playful, adventurous, and intellectual sides. Ron and I met Mike Guth at the Nepean Library, where we worked after school in the 1970s. My favorite section was science fiction, but I'm sure even then, Ron was dipping into philosophy. Ron, Mike, and I shared rental houses together. In addition to the constantly growing vinyl music collections and the ever-present stereo, one house had a snooker table in our dining room. I'm so happy that Ron found snooker buddies, like some of you here, with skills superior to mine. In 1974, Ron and I saw a poster advertising a static line skydiving course. Both of us had drunk enough liquid courage that we decided that this was exactly the next adventure for us. The next morning, after some sober second thoughts, neither one of us would back down. So we paid our money and signed up for our 3-evening course. I don't have time to tell you of all the gut-wrenching, heart-thumping, trembling terror of crawling out under the wing of an airplane at 2,800 feet and letting go to plummet down to the ground under flimsy, flapping fragment of silk. But we did it. And then we did it again. You see, the first time you don't know what to expect. So you have to do it a second time because then you do know what to expect. We had to face the fear and do it anyway. But Ron was braver than me. The main parachutes were colored, but the emergency parachutes were white. I jumped first, so when Ron looked out of the airplane door, he saw me, instead of under an orange parachute, a bright white parachute. He thought I had had to pull my emergency parachute. Actually, I was just too darn big for the regular parachutes. So they gave me the 2XL version, which happens to be bright white. Ron made the jump, even though he thought my parachute had failed just moments before. In the winter of 1987, we decided we should go on vacation to someplace warm. No, not warm, someplace hot. And so we picked Cancun, and we made our plans via Canada Post. I was happy to stay on the tourist trip and spend long days at the beach. But Ron wanted to explore behind the touristy glitz. We took local buses. He wanted to walk among the locals and get the feel for how the people really lived. He wanted to spend his money directly into the hands of the locals. I was happy to be pampered, but Ron wanted to make a positive difference. I think that's a passion he's carried with him always. Ron and Heather visited Diane and me in Calgary a few years ago. We took a road trip on the Icefields Parkway between Banff and Jasper. Diane and I were up and at it first thing in the morning, ready to get there and see those sights. Well, Heather and Ron, they were much more relaxed, mindful, and enjoying the moment. Being mindful and enjoying the moment is a lesson that Diane and I have tried to take from Ron and Heather. Have any of you ever been conversing with Ron while he was making coffee or preparing food? I think some of you have. I can clearly see Ron leaning back against the counter, waving a spoon in the air or tapping it thoughtfully against his mouth while selecting just the precise words to make his point. The enjoyment of the conversation always superseded the food preparation. So let's take a lesson from Ron and enjoy the conversation. Ron has always loved animals. Even the cockroach, the size of a cat, in our hotel room in Cancun got a free pass. And the little geckos on the wall were simply added entertainment. Ron told me that his excursion to an island bird sanctuary off the coast of Cancun was the highlight of that holiday. In high school, Ron took delight in making cardboard mazes for his pet gerbil to explore in his cage. It was important to Ron that his pet have a quality life. Ron named his parrot Thufir after Thufir Howard in the science fiction novel Dune. Ron enjoyed carrying him on his shoulder. One day he carried Thufir outside and Thufir took the opportunity to take flight. Many days later, the bird was found outside a bird sanctuary, and the return of Thufir to Ron actually made front page all across Canada. Who doesn't love a story about a much-loved pet being returned?
And that's the picture with the black-headed parrot out on the table there. It's the picture that was on the front page of all those newspapers. I wasn't around, that was his first parrot.
Is that with the long hair?
With the long hair, it is long.
The long curly hair. Ron's devotion to his parrot Sheku these last 24 years was obvious to anyone who saw them together. And I'm sure that Sheku misses Ron as much as we do. Allow me to quote from Ron's LinkedIn page. Writing projects currently on the go focus on the impact of neoliberalism on North-South inequality, notions of freedom and democracy, and the impact on society of the decline of traditional news media and emergence of new ways of learning and disseminating crucial knowledge about the world. Phew. I have to read that a few times just to understand what he is saying. It clearly shows how deep Ron's thoughts were about the state of society and the world. Ron cared intensely about these topics, and we would discuss over refreshing beverages and talk late into the evening when we were together. In conclusion, Dr. Alan Wolfelt said, "You must listen to the music of the past if you are going to sing in the present and dance into the future." This quote resonates with me because I believe Ron was researching influences of the past to see what we can learn in order to make a better future. Ron cannot be replaced. He was a bright gem that shone while he was here, making a positive impact on everyone and everything he touched. What do I think Ron would say to us when we think of him? I think he would tell us to be kind to each other, experience or enjoy each moment to the fullest, and experience the joy of dancing.
It takes a special person to have friends like you. That's what Ron was. Ron finished formal studies after high school, and I think he spent a time working at a couple of different bookstores, if I'm not mistaken. We weren't around Ottawa, we were living in the county, and we lived in Germany for 4 years, so we lost track of some of these things. But as I recall, as Gail and I were talking about it, we believe that sometimes the employees in bookstores weren't treated fairly, and Ron saw this was not correct, so he started to organize a union, which is not something that the employers normally would be very fond of. And I think he proceeded to marshal the troops, and they actually formed a union in the bookstores. And I think he didn't last too much longer after that. At least he made an impact, and he showed that he cared not just about people in general, but about his fellow employees as well. Maybe it was that kind of thing, taking on challenges, like the challenge of jumping out of an airplane and working to help other people, that led him into the international development field that he ended up working in so long. And that also led him to his posting in Sierra Leone. He was very passionate about helping young people get experience in third world countries, in places where they could really see the other side of life, where they could be of help to people in local communities. And that was his role in Sierra Leone. And it wasn't an easy time to be there, as I think the folks here will agree. In the early 90s, there was a lot of strife in Sierra Leone. I visited for 2 weeks in December of '93, and we could only go to certain areas of the country. You just couldn't go to some parts of the country because would you get shot at? Maybe. It might not be safe to go there. And these are the conditions under which some of the folks who were on the supervising worked under. So it was a challenge, and I think he fulfilled his role extremely well. I'm going to call on 3 people to come from the Sierra Leone community to speak to you about their time with Ron and the friendship they've developed. And I'll start with Adolphe Williams, if I may. Adolphe?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Adolphe Williams, and I'm the president of the Sierra Leone Community Association here in Ottawa. First and foremost, Heather and the Elliott family, and well-wishers and friends, I just want to extend, on behalf of the Sierra Leone community, our deepest condolences to you all. Over the past few months, I've gotten to have a glimpse of who Ron was to the Sierra Leone community. And he was a leader in our community and a man who had great love for Sierra Leoneans. He touched our lives. They touched our lives as Sierra Leoneans in so many ways, and consider him to be one of us. I have had a few conversations with some of our members who knew him, and he was a key contributor to the community and its registration as a not-for-profit organization. He was at every celebration with his wife, and he contributed morally and financially to the building of our community. Ron went the extra mile and opened his home to Sierra Leoneans in need. And to me, that's a generous act. We as Sierra Leoneans had access to Ron's heart, and though he was not from Sierra Leone, we consider him to be one. His character and generosity is an example for us all to emulate as Sierra Leoneans. We are aware of his love for his companion power of 24 years, and knowing that he is now being boarded at the Power Partners organization, the community has made a donation to this organization in hope that his beloved power will continue to be taken care of. So, Heather, I just want you to know that Ron loved us, and I want you to know that we love Ron back. And we appreciate everything that he did for the community. His name will not be forgotten, and we will continue to tell his stories of a Canadian who loved Sierra Leone and its people, and who worked and lived among us. Thank you.
Monty, would you come forward, please? Monty Domingo will speak also.
Thank you very much. I got to know Ron way back in 2000 when I just moved to Canada through the Finn family who had just also arrived here. Since I personally got to know him, his door was as always open, not just to me, but to all Sierra Leoneans that he crossed paths with. Ron will be missed for his service to mankind and his love for birds, especially the parrot species. For 24 years, he had Sheku, and he named him out of 2 reasons, but one: love for Sierra Leone and birds. I never had the opportunity to discuss his rationale for the name Sheku, but in talking to Heather, she told me he just loved that name, Sheku. He might not have known the name, what that name meant, but given the fact that I didn't have the opportunity to have that conversation with him, the name Sheku, I'm sure He took that name to give to Sheku because he believed that that name cuts across every tribe in our nation, because the name Sheku comes from the fact that it's a name given to uh, Islamic scholars. And the shorter version of that name is called Sheikh. So those are the people that will teach Arabic or Islam to others. And when kids are named after them, they are called Sheikh. Ron had no boundaries in showing his love for others. This was not limited to Canada, but extended to the people of Sierra Leone. His service in Sierra Leone as a young university graduate, while serving as a CUSO volunteer, deepened his love for the country and her people. Ron was very, as might have heard from other people, he was very analytical and a strong advocate of the mixed economy system versus the market economy. He always documented his thoughts, and I'm sure he was on the verge of writing a book about how he feels about people being disadvantaged due to market economy. Somebody alluded to something like that just now. Unfortunately, he never got to complete those thoughts in the book format. As alluded by the president of the Sierra Leone community, he was a long-standing member, an advisor, and board member of the community. Ron is not with us physically today, but his spirit will always hover around us each time we come together as a people. May his soul and God's mercy, may his love and God's mercy continue to be with his wife, Heather, as his soul continues to rest in perfect peace. Amen.
How you doing? Margaret Vandy would like to come forward as well. Margaret.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. First and foremost, I would like to say my condolences to Elder and your family and everyone here. My name is Margaret Faciel Vandi. I'm a Sierra Leonean, and I'm a member of Sierra Leone community in Ottawa. I'm here to talk about Ron. I've known Ron for the past 20 years. He was love, passion, and caring for all Sierra Leoneans. I remember Ron during my lowest time. I lost my mom in my country and my sister here. He was by my side. He called me and caring. He put food on the table for my children. I have my community here. They were also by my side. But Ron and Elder, they were my second family. I remember we used to have dinners. He used to take me to places. We used to go camping. Sometimes I get bored because my country, I'm not used to do like going college or something like that. But I learned by Ron to go places. And he was loved. Ron He was so dear. Anytime you talk to him, he advised me and gave me a lot of mentors, like when I'm down or low or something like that. For me to hear his loss, I was touched and I said I have to say something good. Because when I see his face, I just smile. When I lost my sister, I was really low. I felt like I want to go back home. But with the advice of Ron and Elder, they gave me courage. And I started building up my life. And I thank Ron for everything that they did for me. One time, they invited me to their house for a dinner with my kids. And he said to me, I have to meet a family member. And he introduced me Sheku. And Sheku was a bird. And I was, how can you name a bird Sheku? I had a son named Sheku. And he was just 4 or 5 years old. And I asked him, he said, well, I just love the name, as you have all heard from my colleagues. But Sheku is my son, and he's a human. So anytime I think of that, it makes me laugh. He was kind. He was loved, and he loves Sierra Leoneans. And today my son Sheku is right here. He's grown up. I tell him the story, and he look at me, Mom, why did he name the bird Sheku? And I said, well, he loves Sierra Leoneans, so maybe that's why. I promised him we will go and visit Sheku one day. So he was loved. Ron used to dance. We used to have parties. When we have our Sierra Leone parties, we go, each one of us in our homes. So we make parties, we dance like till 2 o'clock. So he loved the cassava leaves and the food, everything it was fun. And he showed us that he loved us as Sierra Leoneans and even want to speak the Creole very well more than us. Finally, Ron, I pray that where you are today, may the Lord guide you and give you peace as we all celebrate your life. Thank you.
I think we all agree Ron and Heather had a blessing, and that is to know the people from Sierra Leone. To know the people from Sierra Leone is to know special people. And for you to be here, to have extended the friendship and the love that you have to Ron and Heather, it's truly wonderful. I remember when I was in Sierra Leone, there was a Christmas party in the office, and everybody danced. Everybody danced. There was a Christmas party at Ron and Heather's house for New Year's, Christmas, either one. Everybody danced. And the Freetown Players came, and everybody danced, because that's what people do. They sing and they dance, and they make the best of life as they can. So thank you all three, for your wonderful words. Appreciate it. We received a note from Ron's first cousin, Betty Jane, who lives in Winnipeg and couldn't be here. And I'll ask Diane Brown if she would come forward to read that message.
Thanks, Larry. I'm delighted to read this note, this email from Betty Jane, Ron's cousin. Ron and I connected in the last few years, and I shall treasure for many more the emails which went back and forth between the two of us. We marveled that, raised apart, we shared some of the same interests. We could go on and on about classic rock. I leaned toward British music, but what Ron did not know about Bruce Springsteen, well, was simply not worth knowing. He topped me, however, when he told me his delightful Mick Jagger story. Can't wait to hear the Mick Jagger story.
Oh, I don't tell it nearly as well as that.
That said, I do not think that Ron would ever have wanted to have the best story. I think he would just be pleased that someone else enjoyed that story. Ron's commitment to social justice issues was, to my mind, not one that he took lightly. Simply put, if Ron believed in it, he tried to live by it. Our last emails were sent as we were both watching a Rolling Stones special, and we each wanted to make sure that the other knew about it. I shall think of him often and miss his emails, which I feel were marked by his kind and compassionate nature. Rest in peace, dear cousin.
We could spend a lot of time talking about Ron, his personal characteristics. I think of his love of movies and music, and he kept sending Gail and Diane also all kinds of songs that he had come across, and he loved to share descriptions of his movies ad nauseum sometimes, quoting verbatim lines and lines and lines of the movies that he loved. He had a great love of the islands in the Caribbean, and he and Heather spent many times in the Caribbean. And as a family, we all went down to Tobago at one point and had a wonderful 2 weeks down there. His difficulty with time management has to be mentioned. Whenever Heather and Ron were coming down to visit us for the weekend at Richardson's Resort on the Bay, we always had a pool. They said they were coming at 6, but let's have a pool to see what time they actually show up. And it was anywhere from 9 to 11 or 12 o'clock at night that they would finally roll in. I don't remember ever winning that pool. His love of parrots has already been discussed. His total devotion to the study of neoliberalism, and I must mention, he would come in the door talking about neoliberalism, and he would spend the evenings talking about neoliberalism, and at breakfast he'd be talking about neoliberalism. So we had a little house rule when Heather and Ron came to visit. No talk about neoliberalism. And he abided by that mostly. Ron has already been referenced, his genuine kindness, his love of people, his love of family and friends, his enjoyment of giving gifts to others. Even when we had a rule in Belleville, we're having the Richardson Christmas, and Ron and Heather would come, and we say, there are no gifts this year. We're trying to keep it down. Ron would always show up with a gift for everyone. Couldn't help. The main things, Ron's gentleness, his respect for all people of all races and nationalities, his compassion for others. These are the things that made him a very special human being and a person that we're all going to miss greatly for all of our days. Gail is very angry. Aminata is angry that he left. They're angry that he left because it was too soon. I think we all agree. He should have lived longer. But we have many good memories to hold in our hearts, and that's our consolation. And so we say farewell and good wishes to Ron at this point. But we're here to celebrate. We have food, we have soft drinks, no alcohol. Sorry about that, some of you. We have soft drinks and food that we'd like you to share. And please make yourselves comfortable. Don't forget to sign the guest book outside. Take a look at the pictures in the slideshow. And with that, we'll get the festivities started with respect to food and drink. Thank you very much.
Get this out of your way here. This is more important. And I think we'll sign off. Hope that worked for everybody, and take care. All the best.